War. War never changes. As the survivors of the nuclear apocalypse emerge from their holes, bunkers, and vaults to see the new world they're in, there are many ideas on how to set this world right. Deep underground in Lost Hills, California, the Brotherhood of Steel had come to believe that, in time, things would set themselves right and humanity would need to be led by a chosen few to reclaim the Earth. But while they were busy making plans, others were busy making history. They soon found themselves surrounded by the new Californian Republic, and despite nearly 2 centuries of preserving old world knowledge, there is no tech in the Brotherhood archives to make a stronger nation submit to their demands. The NCR was not going to restrict their own technology and development to let the Brotherhood lead the way in the wasteland, so soon a war broke out. A war the Brotherhood could not win. The superior numbers and economy of the NCR gradually chipped away the Brotherhood's elite forces until only a small remnant remained in their final bunker under Lost Hills. This is where I began, taking command of a group that had been beaten but not broken, who have now obtained the knowledge that time waits for no one, and will continue to preserve the idea that war never changes. Alright, time to game in Old World Blues again. I saw that there was a decently popular submod for the Lost Hills focus tree, and I thought it'd be pretty fun to check it out since I wanted to do a Brotherhood playthrough. It definitely looks very expanded on its first look, with so much to do, and honestly after doing this campaign I'd probably say a little bit too much, because there were times it was hard to tell what I should be doing. But still, there's a lot of fun to be had here. There are some problems we need to address in the aftermath of the NCR Brotherhood War. We can't invest into the Air Force really, our chain of command is in disarray, and our reputation with the civilian populace is in the toilet. However, we do have some special bonuses and mechanics as the Lost Hills. We have communication range with everyone on the map, but we can only help out our fellow Brotherhood nations. We also have our own tension meter with the NCR that will lead to war once it hits 100. Now, you may wonder how we're supposed to get stronger as this single state nation. Well, we have a decision category to expand the Lost Hills bunker underground, which functions by turning factories and other buildings I build into off-map factories. And as I develop it, I get decisions to run passive buffs for production, research, and army experience. There's also stuff for your politics and diplomacy with other chapters, but that's ignorable for a while. Alright, before we keep pushing forward, I need to show you something wild that just dropped in one of the games I've been playing lately. This game got a crossover with the Assassin's Creed franchise. 5 iconic Assassin's Creed characters are joining as legendary champions with designs insanely faithful to the original games. And now you can get them when you download Raid Shadow Legends with my link. The craziest part is you can get Ezio Auditore da Firenze completely free just by logging in for 7 days. A great asset in both PvP and PvE. On top of Ezio, you can also unlock Edward Kenway, Bayek, Basim, and Cassandra through events, tournaments, and summons. Unlike all the games you see on my channel, Raid is a game you can enjoy anywhere. I like how you can seamlessly continue your playthrough you started on your phone, on your computer. Fight your boredom with ease by downloading Raid Shadow Legends with my link or scanning my QR code to get yourself a great head start in the game with not only Ezio, but you will get a super overpowered legendary right away, Tholen Foulbeard, Venomage on level 15, and one of the best revivers, Rector Drath on level 30. Thank you Raid for sponsoring this video. Now let's head back to the wasteland. At the end of April, we finished the Back in Business focus, which opens up the things we can do, like fixing our nightly confusion, going on expeditions for old world knowledge, Or what I'll do first, establishing communication with Brotherhood chapters around the country. It's important to take care of the other chapters because if you keep them alive, you get paladins. They can be redeemed to spawn an elite power armor template. So that's why I start off by talking with San Francisco chapter to influence them. I can use my spies to do an operation that will tilt their political struggle in my favor and gaining a key ally in a future war against the NCR. Unfortunately, there's not much to do the first year. Although there are several Brotherhood chapters at war, they have a spirit that prevents me from sending them volunteers for a while. The best I can do to help my brothers is doing the radio towers focus, which unlocks a decision allowing me to send support either from our own stockpiles or by buying them mercenaries. In February 2276, I could finally start taking more direct action, starting with the Maxon expedition in Texas. I got 3 divisions with some of the best power armor we had and sent them east. The expedition was locked in a stalemate against Robot City, and my job was to break it. But as we pushed across the river, we received word that the NCR was now going after the Mojave Brotherhood. And I had a feeling that Elijah wasn't going to be coming out of this on top. At least the Maxon expedition had a good chance once I broke through the river. The robots could barely scratch our armor and could do little to stop my march into Robot City. With the main production of robots disrupted, they couldn't reinforce their units, and while the expedition kept them busy in the south, I pushed west to cut off the majority of their army. They didn't really try to escape from the pocket, so I easily cleaned them up, and soon the bots tapped out. Fortunately, the Guardians have done well with the investment I gave them, and are mopping up their neighbors. And although the Montana chapter doesn't look like it needs much help, it's still a good source of army experience. Our meddling in Bay Area politics pays off with our supporters in San Francisco taking control of Xi and establishing the San Francisco chapter. It's not all good news though. On their first attempt, the Legion actually captures the Hoover Dam and gets control over the Mojave Wasteland. If only Elijah had managed to hold out, we might have had a chance there. All I can do for now is strengthen my allies. Once Montana's war is wrapped up, we need to be on the move again because the Maxon expedition is in a fight that they are clearly not handling. When I arrive, I have hope that we can turn things around for them. They're spread out thin, and they can't fight my power armor. The hangdogs knew how screwed they were when I showed up. They even tried to run away from me, but I still caught a few stragglers. The hope I had instantly faded away when I saw the notification of Lanius declaring on the expedition. At that point, winning was impossible. It was all about survival. I had those power armor divisions run as fast as they could to a safe spot. We fled northwards to Crowsland for extraction while Lanius overran the Maxon bunker, ending this expedition for good. Of course, with the dam in Mojave under his control, Caesar is gonna consolidate his control over Vegas. Poor House, with few robots and even fewer allies, isn't gonna stand a chance against the Legion's armies. However, this is gonna be a big problem for the Wastelands. At least the Legion's power before was restrained with its primitive technology, but with the access to the treasure trove of knowledge in New Vegas, that chain is breaking. The NCR can barely take care of their own people. They can't be trusted to stop the Legion. Despite our setbacks, the Brotherhood is still humanity's best path forward, and the Elders firmly believe that only Brotherhood members can be trusted to fulfill our vision. So they rejected the idea of opening up recruitment to outsiders. We continue to expand our ranks of power armor platoons and once again head north to Montana to strike down the Enclave supporters in MacArthur. This war is great, not only for expanding the Brotherhood's overall power in North America, but also for capturing a lot of decent power armor for our troops back in California. The war was decided in weeks with the Enclave remnants fleeing from our power armor divisions as they walked into their main base. While they returned, we were getting troubling updates from Nevada. Our allies there were being run down by the NCR-supported Nevada Pact. They were in a situation very similar to how we were fighting the NCR decades ago. And as much as I wanted them to have a different fate by the time we arrived, it looked like the damage had already been done. I tried to break them out and clear a path of retreat for them, but New Reno's army had proper tank divisions that even my power armor divs struggled to deal with. Just like that, Nevada had been lost. As our volunteers fought for their survival in the Great Basin Desert, morale was tanking in the Lost Hills bunker. We couldn't beat the Legion in Texas, and we couldn't beat the NCR in Nevada. These groups are our main two obstacles to leading humanity, and we keep losing to them. After their victory over the Guardians, the NCR moves into Nevada, getting direct control over most of the state. We are now but a flea amongst wolves, but our weakness provides an opportunity. When these dogs inevitably fight, the NCR will be too distracted to scratch this flea away. On July 7th, 2279, Caesar began his invasion of California proper. Unfortunately, there were a lot of focuses between us being able to get involved, but they are very helpful. Over the next several months, teams of Brotherhood soldiers go north to set up bases all across the Californian land between Lost Hills and the San Francisco chapter. Once they infiltrate these states, they will flip control of it to me when the war breaks out. A year later, the war is pretty much a stalemate. The bear and the bull are exchanging blows along the Colorado River and Mojave. The only part that seems to be moving is the White Legs pushing into Nevada. But in a few months, things would be changing up, not just with us joining, but others in Colorado with a similar story as us. Decades ago, while we were barely surviving against the NCR, a woman had barely survived her tribe being wiped out by Caesar's legion. Her name was Hecate, and for weeks this woman wandered the desert to find a new home because she was constantly refused help by other tribes since they feared Caesar's wrath. She would have died after collapsing from exhaustion if she wasn't saved by a friendly AI, Diana, who nurtured her back to health and taught her a lot of skills. When she left Diana's care, she used her skills to lead a new tribe and gather the strength to get revenge against Caesar. When Diana's home was conquered by Lanius' forces, Hecate returned the favor, helping her gather strength so that soon together they would get their revenge against Caesar's legion. I have to say, they're doing great work so far. Although they weren't directly at war with Caesar, they were at least handling his biggest allies. In February 2281, after letting the NCR and Legion thrash each other for a year and a half, I felt it was time to jump into the chaos and end the ceasefire. On March 27th, the war began and our sleeper cells awoke up, giving us a large chunk of Californian territory. The NCR had no troops against me, so I made sure to make the most of this surprise attack. My power armor divisions would mainly push south to cut the NCR in half and seize as much Californian land as possible before the Legion got it. Me and the San Francisco chapter worked together, running through the Mojave and eventually cutting north to Shady Sands. This took months to accomplish, but by the time we did that, it seemed like the NCR army had been effectively destroyed. We had at least minimized Caesar's gains to only taking the Mojave, Dayglow, and Baja California. Once we cleaned up the unfortunate souls trapped between our armies, we focused northwards to finish off the remnants of the NCR army. When we reached Sacramento, their government accepted the fight was lost and capitulated. Unfortunately to the Legion. There were a few sucklings that needed to be finished off, and the Legion was kind enough to give me military access to end this war faster. In March 2282, nearly a year after I began my war against the NCR, we were now sitting on the winning side of the peace table. Despite Caesar's Legion having more war score than me in the peace deal, I was surprisingly able to force them out of a lot of NCR states. I was very shocked at how passive he was being here. I literally got all the NCR cores from him. Caesar went through all of that just to get a few states off of Vault City. I'd like to imagine that after the blunder, his legates just sat back and let him realize how scammed he got.
There it is.
And that's why he started justifying on me 2 weeks later. At least I got 8 months to prepare. I mean, there's all this content about managing California I need to get through that will make me strong enough to handle him, and he just declared the war 7 months early. Somehow, I had to make this work. I had one army in the northeast clean up the few states Caesar's Legion got in the peace deal. Thankfully, Ouroboros cleaned up the Whitetails and other Legion forces in Utah and Colorado, so this front was a lot more manageable. He also won't be getting any help from the east, since once again, Lanius is face planting. I just had to hope that they could finish up here before the main brunt of Caesar's forces arrived to attack my main defensive line in front of the hub. Despite my vastly inferior numbers, I was hoping that the quality of my power armor would pull through here. I mean, Caesar hadn't really given himself much time to recuperate after the NCR war, so his army should be pretty worn out. In July, Caesar has hit me with everything he has, and while we are pretty much done with the fight in the northeast, we need some stronger divisions on the front. You've probably noticed that I've been floating by with barely any manpower due to the Elder's choice of having a pure manpower pool, and now more than ever, we need our paladins on the field, and I'm just gonna delete the bunker detachment divs to get the manpower for them. I don't expect this defensive line to hold perfectly, but I'm hoping to make every tile they take from me here as costly as possible, and maybe force the AI to make mistakes that I can exploit for encirclements. Our troops are very encouraged when we hear that Lanius' capital has fallen to Texan troops. The next domino had fallen. Sadly, we did eventually get driven out of the hub, but we didn't let the Legion get much further than that. To basically breach my defensive line to take one city from me, they had taken about 15,000 casualties. We sat in another long stalemate for a few more months, and after inflicting a lot more casualties on the Legion, I figured they'd be weak enough for me to counterattack. We quickly broke through their lines south of the hub with the goal of curving north to the mountains. We had also had troops pushing along the foothills, and soon those two pincers met east of the hub. The hub would soon be liberated once the 24 Legion divisions trapped there were destroyed. This would be the beginning of the end for the Legion. Any attacking power they had was gone, and we were going to be on the offensive from now on. Across the entire front, we were destroying their soldiers. The Legion troops couldn't even run away fast enough, so we cut off so many troops after the front line shattered. From there, I could easily battle plan without worry, liberating all of the Californian land from Legion oppression. By the time we got to Arizona, there were only a few divisions left in my way. With the war in the bag now, we could safely do expeditions to places across the wastelands. One such expedition took us far away from our shores to make contact with the people in Hawaii and make a great trade deal with them. With the fall of Flagstaff, it was clear to everyone that the time of the Legion was over. With us defeating the NCR and Caesar's Legion, the people were now ready to accept that we are in the age of the Brotherhood. Unfortunately, not everyone was on board for that age. The barons in the NCR felt threatened by this change of leadership, and to protect their power, they've been flexing their muscles by destroying food and killing livestock so we leave them alone. But this also puts much of California at risk of a famine. We'll deal with them in time, but first we have to finish up our work in Arizona. The Whitelegs get eaten by Ouroboros, Lanius is absorbed by the Texans, and I help myself to everything else. To give the people faith in our leadership, we put on a friendlier face by changing the name of our nation to the Californian Brotherhood of Steel. Now, as for those pesky barons, at first we tried to talk with them over dinner, but I wasn't a fan of how they were asking for stuff, so we chose a different option. First, we started arresting all the barons who tried to extort us, then we took their farms and started running them with our own guys. Yeah, we're pretty much mal-larping here, but this somehow fixes the famine problems in California. Who would have thought people who've spent their entire lives in a bunker would be so good at farming? My next goal was to unite all the remaining Brotherhood chapters. By crushing the Milia with the Washington Brotherhood, we would share a border after they died, which allows me to do a focus to get them in my faction. And since they border the Montana Brotherhood, I'll get them in after that. The Republic of Texas is run by a Brotherhood chapter, so I could get them into my faction once they finished this war they're in. They're facing off against the Republic of the Rio Grande, and a lot of Mexican robots supporting them. But they seem to be doing decently at the moment, so I figured a few veteran volunteers would be all they needed to wrap up this war in their favor and establish the Brotherhood of Steel as the undisputed leaders of North America. When they arrived, we worked with the Texans to clean up the isolated pockets of Mexican robots and Rio Grande troops. Dozens of divisions were taken care of, and since I noticed the strength of the Texan divisions were low, I dropped so much equipment on them to refill their inventory. After 5 months of work, we had really left a mark on those enemy armies. Still, the fight was far from over. There were tens of thousands of Mexican robots still out there making offensives into Texas, and I needed to redeploy to start shutting them down. Starting from Waco, we moved southwards, making pockets wherever I can, but don't be mistaken as you watch these combats. These robots are actually pretty tough. Late game, my power armor isn't as untouchable as it used to be, so there is a bit more struggle as I fight. The main advantage I have is air superiority in the area, which gives me what I need to outmaneuver and destroy so many of the robots they put out to fight me. One thing that was frustrating was that despite all the help I was giving Texas, they didn't appear to be doing much with it. Now that I left the Western Theater, the robots were pushing up the Rio Grande again, but that's not my only problem. A coalition of random nations in Canada are starting an invasion of Montana, and we just can't let that happen. I do my best to set up Texas for success before I head out, getting a few more easy kills, and hopefully the Texans can figure it out from here. Meanwhile, we get word back from an expedition that crossed the entire Pacific to meet with people in Japan. Our expedition avoided irradiated and mined areas and landed, soon spotting a battle between a small detachment of soldiers and mutants. We decided to help them out to get us started off on the right foot, meeting with them. They took us to their home city of Nagoya. It is called an exclusionary zone since any non-human intelligences are shot on sight. We see a very well organized and prosperous city on the level of New Vegas. However, it is not all good here. They are under threat from a Chinese emperor from Taiwan trying to assert control over them and all other cities like Nagoya in Japan. Not wanting to risk this threat possibly coming across the Pacific, we're gonna aid their fight against the Chinese. But just when I think we got things locked down over here, more problems keep springing up. Even though Caesar had been slain, Hecate's rage wasn't satisfied. Even though we had been de facto allies before, I wouldn't be spared. Even though there was a path forward to build a better civilization, the pain that she felt was going to be spread across all the wastelands. Okay, what's up with justifications in Old World Blues? Just like with the Legion, it says it will be ready in a few months, and then they're able to declare in less than 2 weeks. So obviously I'm not ready, especially with half my army fighting in Montana, but somehow I gotta try to make this work. Montana is top priority right now because clearly my friends can't handle this situation by themselves. I basically have to abandon Arizona since I just don't have the troops to cover it. My few troops not committed in Montana are gonna try to hold the mountain passes that they can until the Northern War is finished up. This was a lot easier said than done because Canada is pretty massive, so there is a lot of ground to cover there. Plus, Hecate here is kinda cracked with the bonuses she gets. She straight up gets better combat bonuses than I do, and it's not like she's running around with some paper tiger divisions either. We really got our work cut out for us here. In July, we finish up the war against the Second Coalition in Canada. I leave it all to Montana to run, and take a breath to brace for the real fight ahead. Ouroboros has overrun a lot of Northern California, and needs to be pushed back. But they've also crossed the Colorado River, and are pushing from the south as well. There's a lot of frontage to manage here, and I don't really have the divisions to properly cover it. The only way I have a chance is defeat in detail. I have to combine my troops to do big offensives on one front, and then while they recover from that, I move on to another front to make another big blow. One army starts off by pushing north up the Central Valley. There was a lot of good moves here. We easily destroyed their front line and took out a lot of the divisions who were guarding it. Meanwhile, a second pincer is driving south from Arroyo. They're also getting encirclements where it can, and also trying to meet up with the Central Valley Army east of Redding to cut off another big army. So far, we have inflicted massive casualties on the Daughters of Hecate, but we have so many more troops to clear through. Although this operation was a major success, we cut off and destroyed several armies worth of divisions in California, and even managed to liberate some of Nevada. But as I'm pushing into Nevada and liquidating the pockets, I now need to be mindful of what's happening in Southern California. Hecate's troops march through most of SoCal now, and are about to overrun the hub and Necropolis. I can't be pushing into Nevada anymore. I need to wrap up these final pockets in NorCal and deal with this ASAP. Now, if I were to sum up the next 5 months for me, it would be...
I can't do this. Guys, I can't do this! Stop! I can't do this!
Like, I'm trying my best out here, but they're replacing their divisions? I can't do that. My focus on purity for my manpower pool means that I can't afford to make mistakes or take many losses, which can be very hard when you're outnumbered 10 to 1 by an equivalent quality army. I have cored most of California, which is why my surrender progress is so high, but they've only given me enough manpower to maintain my current army. I can't train new divisions. Meanwhile, the Daughters of Hecate have a bottomless supply of manpower and industry to replace their casualties. And slowly but surely, they've pushed the front line up closer and closer to Lost Hills every time I had to leave one front to push another. Now, they've practically united the fronts, and I'm running out of options. To make matters worse for us, the Republic of Texas has apparently dropped the ball after all the help we've given them. The Republic of Rio Grande and their Mexican AI allies have swallowed up most of the state, so I have no hope for the Brotherhood there. Even though our future is bleak, I try one last counteroffensive to keep us in the fight. As the Daughters are sweeping up the Californian coast, I pull my army out of the Central Valley to crush this offensive. This is all core territory, and I'm very close to capping, but I have noticed after causing 97,000 casualties to Ouroboros that they are sub 200 divisions for the first time, so maybe there is a light at the end of this cave. I begin sweeping west from Necropolis, but that's when we get word of the fall of Dallas and the end of the Republic of Texas. A very sad end considering all I did to help. I did get an achievement after that, since they were the only non-Brotherhood nation not in our faction. It just feels like the game is squeezing a lemon on my wound there. Nevertheless, we push on to the coast, cutting off the Daughters' troops and bringing this land back under our control. The walls are closing in from all sides, and we just don't have the troops to properly fight back. There's no strategy anymore by August. I'm just trying to fight back as much as possible. Every day we can keep fighting is a victory for us. However, even though the bunker and the land around it is holding, Ouroboros forces us to capitulate on August 17th. They didn't even need the bunker. Capturing Navarro, which I had a core on, pushed me over the threshold, and now it's game over for me. We put up one hell of a fight, but in the end, it wasn't enough. The Lost Hills Brotherhood sought to reshape the Wastelands, and although things didn't end in their favor, the Wastelands were still forever changed. Ouroboros troops soon descended upon the Lost Hills bunker in force. The few troops remaining there didn't care for a final stand. Instead, they rigged the bunker to explode. When the attackers entered the 4th level of the bunker, the explosives went off, causing a massive explosion whose impact was felt across the state. Those who remained on the surface fled to the San Francisco chapter, but everyone knew that they can only provide temporary safety against Hecate, so they quickly moved on from the city. Some chose to take a ship northwards to the Washington Brotherhood to keep the current war going, refusing to accept defeat. Others, who were less optimistic about their odds, ventured out all the way to Hawaii to start a new Brotherhood chapter and rebuild to one day return to the mainland. But there were also a few adventurous souls who wanted to leave the Brotherhood behind for good. They would start a new life across the Pacific, with our friends in Japan bringing expertise, technology, and weaponry to help the Japanese fight better against the Chinese threat. Hecate was ecstatic hearing about the fall of Lost Hills, but her victory in California had come at an exorbitant price. Every life lost on the front line was one less life to run a business, keep the roads safe, or start a family. In her efforts to avenge her past, Hecate had thrown away her future. Still, she commands her troops to push through Oregon, condemning the fate of thousands more, spilling blood just like in the days of the old world, because war never changes. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was quite the roller coaster, but I think I put together a great story for y'all. If you did like it, remember to leave a like on the video so other people will see it too. Shout out to my alumni supporting content like this, it means a lot. I try to take good care of y'all on the battlefield, sorry if you died before the very end. Now, I haven't forgotten about the mega campaign for those who keep asking. Now that I've cleared through everything I needed to do, I can focus on getting you that video, hopefully by the end of January. Thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check them out through my link below or scanning this QR code and get yourself some nice goodies when you play the game along with 2 epic champions.